Unaware of his identity, Barista mocks Tom Cruise for being poor, but he owns it all. The morning sun lit up the small coffee shop on a busy New York street. The place was called Brew Haven, famous for its cozy vibe and quick service. Inside, baristas moved quickly behind the counter, filling cups and calling out names. Among them was Jake, a young man in his early 20s, sharp-tongued and full of energy. He had a reputation for teasing customers. Lightly, he believed, but not everyone agreed. That day, the shop's bell jingled as a man walked in, wearing a plain hoodie, jeans, and sunglasses. His shoes looked dusty, and his clothes seemed worn out. Jake spotted him right away and leaned toward his coworker, whispering, "Another broke tourist. Watch this." The man approached the counter and smiled warmly. His voice was soft but clear. "Hi, can I get a black coffee, please?" Jake smirked. "Sure thing, buddy. Tough times, huh? Black coffee's the cheapest thing we got. You want a free refill, too?" The man chuckled politely, not reacting the way Jake expected. "No, just one cup will do." While preparing the coffee, Jake couldn't resist throwing in another comment. "You know, if you save enough loyalty points, you might be able to afford a muffin one day." A few customers nearby glanced over, sensing the uncomfortable exchange. The man, still smiling, took the coffee and handed over a crumpled $5 bill. Jake gave the change with a dramatic flourish, making a show of counting each coin loudly. "And here's your hard-earned cash back, sir. Don't spend it all in one place." The man simply nodded. "Thank you." He took his coffee and moved to a corner seat, pulling out a small notebook and scribbling quietly. Some customers kept looking his way, as if recognizing him, but unsure. An hour passed. The coffee shop grew busier. Jake moved on, forgetting about the man. But when the manager, Emily, returned from her break, she froze in the doorway. She grabbed Jake's arm tightly. "Jake," she hissed, "do you have any idea who that is?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, some homeless dude trying to act all chill." Emily stared at him in disbelief. "That's Tom Cruise, you idiot!" Jake burst out laughing. "Right, and I'm Brad Pitt." Emily was not joking. She pulled out her phone, Googled Tom Cruise's latest charity project, and showed Jake a photo. It was him. Same hoodie, same dusty jeans. Jake's heart dropped into his stomach. He turned pale, feeling the floor tilt under his feet. Before he could react, he noticed two men in sharp suits walk in and approach the table where the man was sitting. "Mr. Cruise," one of them said respectfully, "your car's ready." The man, Tom Cruise, stood up, thanked the staff around him kindly, and dropped a $500 tip into the tip jar without saying a word. As he passed Jake, he paused and said, "Kindness costs nothing, but it changes everything," before leaving with his team. The entire coffee shop went silent. Jake could feel every pair of eyes on him. He wanted to disappear. But just when he thought it couldn't get worse, another twist came. Tom Cruise's car, waiting outside, wasn't just any car. It was a shining, custom Rolls-Royce Phantom. And right behind it was a moving truck, covered in banners that read, "Brew Haven, New Owner Celebration." Jake's jaw dropped as Tom Cruise turned around from the car door, smiled at the small crowd gathering outside, and said, "I just bought this coffee shop. Let's make it a place full of kindness." Jake stumbled backward, bumping into a chair. He watched as Tom waved to the customers and disappeared into the luxury car. Jake's mind raced. Had he just insulted the owner of the very place he worked? But the nightmare was only beginning. The next morning, Jake arrived at Brew Haven with a heavy heart. He barely slept the night before, replaying every word he said to Tom Cruise in his head. He half expected the shop to be locked, a closed for good sign taped to the door. But the place was open, brighter somehow. Balloons floated by the windows. A new menu board sparkled above the counter, handwritten notes of gratitude pinned all over it. A big banner inside said, "Kindness brews here now." Jake stepped inside slowly. Every regular customer stared at him like he carried a terrible secret, because he did. Emily caught sight of him and walked over, arms crossed. "You're lucky you still have a job," she said sharply. "Mr. Cruise gave specific instructions. He doesn't want anyone fired. He said—" She paused, swallowing her anger. "He said everyone deserves a second chance." Jake's throat tightened. He had never felt so small. Before he could say anything, Emily added, "But there's a condition." "What condition?" Jake asked nervously. She pointed at a large piece of paper taped behind the counter. It was a list titled, Jake's Kindness Missions. There were 10 tasks on it. Real, personal, and humbling. Serve free coffee to 5 strangers. Clean the streets around the shop. Help an elderly customer carry groceries home. Write thank you notes to customers. And more. Jake read the list twice, feeling a strange mix of shame and challenge. Everyone else was watching, waiting for his reaction. Without saying a word, he grabbed a pen from the counter and scribbled, "I accept," at the bottom. There was a small round of applause from a few customers, but Jake barely noticed. His mind was racing. The first task was simple: offer a free coffee to a random customer. Jake forced a smile and called out, "Next customer, your drink's on me today." An elderly woman stepped forward shyly. Jake prepared a latte for her and handed it over with genuine warmth this time. "Have a beautiful day, ma'am." The woman's face lit up. "Thank you, young man. I really needed this today." Jake watched her leave, feeling a tiny shift inside him. Maybe kindness wasn't so cheesy after all. But before he could relax, another twist unfolded. The door opened again, and in walked Tom Cruise. This time without sunglasses, without the hoodie, just himself, confident, friendly, and unmistakable. Everyone gasped softly. Some people even dropped their coffee cups in shock. Tom Cruise walked straight up to the counter. Jake's palms went sweaty. "Good morning, Jake," Tom said casually. "I thought I'd come in for another coffee. Black, please." Jake nodded quickly, preparing the coffee with trembling hands. "I'm so sorry, sir, about yesterday. I didn't recognize you. I didn't mean to." Tom held up a hand, stopping him. "It's all right. I'm not here for an apology." Jake handed him the coffee, confused. Tom leaned forward a little and said, "I'm here because I believe in building people up, not tearing them down." Jake blinked. He didn't know what to say. Tom continued, "You made a mistake. Everyone does. What matters is what you do next." Jake nodded, speechless. Tom smiled and turned to leave, but paused again. "Oh, by the way," he said over his shoulder, "the kindness missions, that's just the start." Jake stood frozen as the door closed behind Tom Cruise once again. What did he mean, just the start? He didn't have to wonder long. 5 minutes later, Emily handed Jake a letter with a golden seal. Jake opened it carefully. Inside was an invitation to something much bigger than he could ever imagine. Jake stared at the invitation, feeling like he was holding a live wire. The paper was thick and expensive, the golden seal embossed with an elegant TC, Tom Cruise's initials. He unfolded it carefully and read the neat handwriting inside. "Dear Jake, you've been selected to attend a private workshop, The True Power of Kindness. Date: tomorrow, 10 a.m. Location, address attached. Dress code, casual. Tom." Jake blinked a few times. Was this a prank? Some kind of hidden camera show? But when he checked the attached address, it pointed to an exclusive event hall uptown. Very real, very serious. The next morning, Jake dressed in his cleanest jeans and shirt. He took extra care to comb his hair and even polished his sneakers. His hands were sweaty as he caught the subway and followed the GPS to the location. The building was breathtaking. Tall glass walls, giant silver doors, lush gardens around it. Jake hesitated at the entrance, but a security guard in a suit smiled and waved him in. Inside, he found a gathering of about 30 people, men and women of all ages and backgrounds. No one looked particularly wealthy or famous. They looked normal. Jake felt a little less out of place. On each seat was a folder labeled, "Welcome Changemaker." Before Jake could open his, the lights dimmed and a spotlight hit the stage. There he was again, Tom Cruise. Tom stood at the center, wearing a simple black t-shirt and jeans. No cameras, no reporters, just him and them. "Good morning, everyone," Tom began, his voice calm and strong. "You're here because you made a mistake." There was a murmur in the room. Some people shifted uncomfortably. Tom smiled gently. "And that's not a bad thing. Mistakes teach us, humble us. They remind us that we're human, but kindness transforms us. Jake leaned forward, heart pounding. Tom went on, "This workshop isn't about fixing your past. It's about building your future. Each of you has shown a spark of kindness, even after messing up. That's why you're here." He paused, scanning the room. His gaze rested on Jake for a heartbeat, then moved on. "Today," Tom continued, "you'll face 3 challenges. Pass them, and you'll not just leave with new skills. You'll leave with an opportunity that can change your life forever." Jake's heart hammered against his ribs. He hadn't signed up for challenges. The first challenge was announced immediately: Team Kindness Relay. They had to work in teams of 5, helping strangers outside, carrying groceries, handing out free meals, cleaning up parks. Real, practical kindness on the spot. No cameras, no credit. Jake's team was quickly formed: a college student, a retired nurse, a single dad, and a shy bookstore owner. At first it was awkward. Jake didn't know how to approach random people without sounding weird, but soon he found his rhythm, helping an old man cross the street, giving sandwiches to homeless folks, even picking up trash from the sidewalks. The more he gave, the lighter he felt. Like every act of kindness shaved off a layer of guilt, of shame, of fear. Hours later, the teams returned, sweaty and tired, but smiling wide. Tom greeted them personally at the door. "Proud of you," he said, clapping each one on the back. Jake felt something swell inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time: pride. But the second challenge was waiting, and it wasn't going to be so easy. The lights dimmed again. A giant screen lowered from the ceiling, showing a video clip. It was a hidden recording from Brew Haven, showing Jake mocking Tom just 2 days ago. Jake's stomach twisted. He felt 100 eyes on him. Tom's voice cut through the tension. "Second challenge," he said. "Own your actions. Stand up. Tell everyone here what you did wrong and what you learned from it." Jake wanted the floor to swallow him whole, but he stood up. Voice shaking at first but growing steadier, he said, "I judged a man by his clothes. I disrespected a customer, thinking I was being funny. I didn't realize I was being cruel. I learned that you never know someone's story, and that kindness matters, more than pride, more than ego." The room was silent for a second, then erupted in applause. Tom nodded approvingly. "Well said." Jake sat down, heart hammering but lighter somehow. He passed the second challenge, but what he didn't know was that the third challenge, the final test, was going to shake his world even more, and not everyone in the room would pass it. Tom Cruise walked back onto the stage, a serious expression on his face. The energy in the room shifted. Everyone could feel it. Something important was about to happen. "You've all done well," Tom said, his voice echoing slightly. "But now comes the real test, the final challenge." He paused, letting the tension build. "In the next room," he continued, "there's a vault. Inside it is something valuable. Each of you will be sent in, one at a time. You'll be given 2 options. Take what's inside for yourself, or leave it for someone who needs it more." Murmurs spread across the room. Tom raised a hand. "No one will see what you choose. No cameras. No witnesses. It's just you and your conscience." Jake swallowed hard. This was different. This wasn't about impressing others. This was about who you were when no one was watching. One by one, the participants were called. Jake watched them disappear through a heavy wooden door at the back of the hall, their faces tense and thoughtful. Finally, his name was called. Jake stood up, heart pounding. The room seemed to blur around him as he walked to the door. A staff member in a black suit nodded silently and opened it for him. Inside, the room was small, dimly lit, and silent. In the center stood a glass vault. Inside the vault was a stack of crisp $100 bills, easily $50,000. Next to the vault was a simple, handwritten note. "You can take it. No one will know. Or you can leave it and change someone else's life forever." Jake stared at the money. His mind raced. $50,000. It could pay off his student loans, help his struggling parents, give him a fresh start. No one would know. No one, except himself. He thought about the elderly woman he served free coffee to, the homeless man who smiled at him after getting a sandwich, the little kid who waved when Jake cleaned up trash outside his school. He thought about Tom Cruise's words, "Kindness costs nothing, but it changes everything." Jake's hand trembled as he reached out. Then he smiled, stepped back, and whispered, "Not today." He turned and walked out without taking a single dollar. When he returned to the hall, Tom was waiting. Jake expected a small nod or maybe a quiet thank you. Instead, Tom beamed and shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner." The crowd erupted in cheers. Confetti rained down from the ceiling. Music blasted through the speakers. Jake stood frozen, confused and overwhelmed. Tom stepped forward, shaking his hand firmly. "Jake," he said, "you chose integrity over greed. You passed the ultimate test." Jake grinned nervously. "But what about the others?" Tom's smile faded just a little. "Not everyone made the same choice," he said quietly. "But that's life. The important thing is, you did." Jake felt dizzy with emotion. Then Tom dropped the final bombshell. "You see," Tom said, stepping aside, "that money wasn't real." Jake blinked. "What?" Tom laughed. "It was just paper. Movie prop money. The real prize is this." He handed Jake a sleek envelope. Jake opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a job offer, an executive position at a brand new nonprofit organization, funded by Tom Cruise himself, dedicated to spreading kindness through small businesses around the country. High salary, full benefits, a chance to make real change. Jake's knees nearly buckled. He looked up at Tom, unable to find the words. Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "You earned this, not because you're perfect, but because you chose the right thing when it mattered most." The entire hall cheered again. For the first time in his life, Jake felt truly seen, truly proud. But there was still one final moment coming, something Jake didn't expect, something that would tie everything together, a moment that would change not just his future, but his very understanding of life itself. The celebration continued around him, but Jake hardly noticed. His thoughts were racing as he held the envelope, the weight of the decision he'd just made settling on his shoulders. He had chosen the right thing, but what did that really mean for him now? Tom Cruise walked over, a calm smile on his face, and gestured for Jake to follow him. They stepped into a quieter room, away from the festivities. "You did great today," Tom said, his voice genuine. "But I want to ask you one last thing, Jake. What did you learn from all of this?" Jake paused, feeling the weight of Tom's words. He thought about everything: his rude behavior, the humility he felt after the kindness task, the final challenge in the vault. He thought about how he'd treated others in the past, how he judged people based on surface-level things. He looked up at Tom, realizing the answer he was about to give wasn't just for the workshop, but for his life going forward. "I learned that kindness isn't something you do when it's easy. It's something you do when it's hard," Jake said slowly, his voice full of conviction. "It's not about being perfect. It's about choosing to make the right decision, even when it's tempting to do the wrong thing." Tom nodded, his eyes twinkling with approval. "That's the truth, and that's why you're here today." Jake smiled, feeling a weight lift off his chest. He was finally seeing the world differently. The money, the status, the success, they weren't what made life meaningful. It was how you treated others. It was the choices you made when no one was watching, when the temptation to take the easy way out was strongest. "Here's what you don't know," Tom said, lowering his voice a little. "The people you've helped, the kindness you've shared today, that's the real prize. The impact you make on others is what changes the world. Not what you take, but what you give." Jake nodded, understanding now more than ever that his journey had only just begun. Tom extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Jake. You're not just working for a company, you're working for something bigger, something that matters." Jake shook Tom's hand, feeling the final piece of his transformation fall into place. It wasn't about impressing others. It wasn't about success for the sake of success. It was about building something good. It was about kindness, honesty, and integrity. As they left the room together, Jake looked back at the hall full of people, each of them having faced their own challenge, each of them having made their own choices. Some would leave with a sense of accomplishment, others with regrets. But Jake knew something they didn't, that the true victory was in the everyday choices we make. As he walked outside into the sunlight, a sense of peace washed over him. He had chosen to be better, not because it would make him rich or famous, but because it was the right thing to do. He looked at the people around him, the strangers walking past, the workers hustling through their daily lives. He knew now what he had to do. Kindness would be his legacy, not just today, but for the rest of his life. Kindness isn't always easy, and it's not always rewarded in the ways we expect. But the true value of kindness lies not in what we receive in return, but in the difference we make in the lives of others. Every choice, every act, no matter how small, has the power to change the world for the better.